and welcome. We're here today at College Cambria to have a look at some issues regarding social media and cyber bullying. Today we'll be talking to an old youth worker from a school that I used to go to, which is called Ysgol Brynelyn, and we'll be talking to student services and looking at some topics regarding these issues. And now we'll be talking to our first person to interview today, which is Mark from the student services. Here outside of the student services in College Cambria, I'm talking to Mark, so hello Mark.
Hi.
Today we'll be just asking you a couple of questions regarding cyberbullying and social media. How many cases of bullying have you helped with?
I wouldn't be able to give you a specific number, but it's a recurring theme every term. You know, we'll have probably between 20-25 notifications from curriculum staff a day of concern for student welfare, and I would suggest of those probably 20% would be related to bullying. What
measures do you take to resolve these sort of issues, or do you send people out to talk to them in groups?
We'll usually link with the student services advisor for that particular curriculum area and have a conversation not just with staff members but also the learners concerned.
Do you believe that cyberbullying cases are more taken down to social media and self-image?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, bullying by its very definition it's a slow drip effect. It's very subtle at first, but it is persistent, continuous, and then it begins to intrude on someone's health and well-being. So it's certainly something that social media creates a platform to make it much more accessible for people to do, because there's not that human interaction.
Because there's a lot of people that go on social media, they'll probably post a picture of themselves or whatever, and then they just find themselves people commenting or feeling that they're not popular, or they find themselves a bit, when they don't like their self-image. How many people, obviously you can't discuss numbers, but do you get that sort of thing where people are coming in and they more talking about how they don't like their self-image?
We do, and I guess it's a different transaction that people have without giving my age away. It's you guys and girls that are growing up in this age of digital media and different social media platforms and different ways of forming relationships. I think from perhaps someone of my age looking inwards, people aren't having that human interaction. It's all very immediate. If you haven't liked my comment, if you haven't liked my post, you mustn't like me. And it might just be they've gone for their lunch and not picked their phone up for half an hour.
Yeah.
But the reaction is immediate. If people don't get immediate responses, their reactions are far quicker. It doesn't happen slowly. So a lot of people feel they're being bullied, perhaps they're being ignored.
Yeah. Would you say it's solely blamed on social media, or like the age restrictions that people use? Should it be raised higher, or should it be more policed?
I don't know what the answer is. I think that's over and above something we could solve as a college. Withdrawing or withholding access to social media certainly is proven to not be the appropriate response. It's teaching people how to use these means of communication responsibly and respectfully, and that's being a broken record, I guess, from when people come from primary to secondary school and secondary school to FE, where you get a lot more freedom in a college setting than perhaps you would feel in a school. But with that comes a greater responsibility how you conduct yourself.
Have you had any personal experiences with this sort of thing, as in terms of maybe an argument with someone, or is it?
I've had personal experience of being bullied from when I was in school, but prior to handheld devices and the internet being what it is. It didn't exist, believe it or not, when I was that age. So I've experienced of being bullied and what it feels like to be targeted in that way. But of course at that time everything would have been sharing information verbally, communicating, listening, finding somebody to seek advice from. Now you've got that, but then you've also got lots of other ways of gaining information. My worry is that people insulate themselves in an online world, so they try and seek the answers to how they're feeling also online, and that then gets added to the group chat, for example, and threats can be implied. You know, you're going to get yourself into trouble for cyberbullying. You're going to find yourself removed from this platform. It doesn't really have that human interaction, and I guess that's sad to see. Because what we would like to see is students communicating positively via all means, but certainly on a human level.
Because the problem I've had before is when you try and make a point across, it make because like there's two ways of saying things, and maybe they've got the wrong way of how you're trying to portray what you're trying to say to them in response.
Yeah, I think other than putting emoticons or adding GIFs or whatever, you're going to struggle to really convey. And quite often, if you're already feeling left out or you're already feeling picked on, I would suggest that your sensitivity level is going to be far higher, and you're more likely to misread further messages or comments that others make. So that's harder to do face to face, because you can make eye contact, you can see body language, you can see if someone's posturing or aggressive. You can walk away if you don't want to continue with the conversation. They're the bits that go missing in the digital space.
It's been lovely talking to you, because there's a lot of information we've been given, especially when it's down to it. Other than yourselves, obviously, with your student services, who else could people go to talk to around Oakham?
There's lots of services available online, certainly for young people in and around Wrexham. Sign up with the info shop in town, and that's a great resource hub for young people to get answers to questions, not just face to face, but also with different web platforms.
All right, and we'll be looking at something else, another part of this topic to do with our documentary regarding a child that actually went on a mobile device and downloaded a game at a very young age, the only age of 3. The mother spotted an issue with one of these games that was able to be downloaded on Google Play, which was a car game which actually threatened to stab children. That was on there and was quickly removed by Google Play, but is another issue to do with how social media is becoming a big problem with people as young as 3 and people who are just under 14 or under the Facebook threshold age, which is 13. Very recently on social media, there was a video of a mother who was holding a handheld device talking about how she had downloaded some games for her toddler to play. In this clip that I'm about to show you, it shows a young toddler who played on this game that was downloaded off Google Play that actually threatens to stab children with a knife.
I heard this demonic voice and I'm like, what on earth is my daughter watching? That sounds really evil. So I've gone flying into the other room and I've heard something suggesting that it was going to stab my daughter. And this is no joke, I promise you, it's no joke. This is the app. So we wait. Here's the call. So we're going to answer. And then we've got another ad.
Hi kids, I'm your new friend. Happy, Slappy, whatever you want me to be called. You see, I want to play with you, kiddo. Maybe we could perform some fun games together. What's this, hogwash? You look afraid. Is it this knife in my whirly-turly hands making you a little nervous, huh? That's all right, 'cause this knife is gonna improve your look when it's sticking right out of you.
Now, since that video was published, the game on Google Play has been taken down by Google. But this still just shows how many games could be out there that are threatening to kill children or even attack young adults or young people. Now, this is also another thing with children being at the young age. It also is inflicted with social media. The social media threshold age is 13 or above. However, there are children who ask for parental consent to go on these social media apps younger than the stated age, which is in fact illegal. So now we're going to be talking to Caroline Prue, who is a youth worker from Ysgol Bryn Allen, who is now gone to the council. So, how many cases of bullying have you helped with over your time in your career?
Incalculable. I couldn't have them all up. Too many. Hundreds, possibly even thousands.
And how long have you been working with as a youth worker?
Approximately 20 years.
What measures did you take to resolve some issues in the sort of cyberbullying and social media world?
Well, I watched it all happen from the beginning, because obviously when I started as a youth worker there wasn't such a thing as social media, and so I've seen it all start from the beginning. And we've had to keep up with the times. Obviously social media moves very, very quickly, especially over the last, I'd say, 5 to 10 years. It's gone very, very quickly, and having to keep up as workers who are supporting young people has been very difficult, because by the time we're getting a handle on one thing, something new has popped up. So relying on young people to tell us what is going on first off, and then I think the main way we've worked on it is actually by trying to improve young people's self-esteem, so they're able to actually deal with these things themselves. Because you can't, something as big as social media, you've got so many people involved. There's an element of not knowing who's even on the other end and who's causing the problems in the first place, so you can't tackle it at the source as such. So I think it's about building people's self-esteem so they're able to tackle it themselves, or be brave enough to switch the off button.
And what sort of age categories have you
Well, as a youth worker, I've always worked with between the ages of 11 and 25 approximately, but
And the
some
youngest?
younger. The youngest ones with bullying dealt with probably been year 6 junior school, and we're aware that it's going on a lot younger than that now, because obviously increasingly younger people are being given phones and tablets and the Xbox. You've got Xbox Live, and you game consoles and things like that, so you've actually got 5 and 6 year olds now on the receiving end.
Exactly, because there's a lot of parents and a lot of people who allow young children to have these sorts of devices. Do you think that is partially to blame, or it should happen, or should be more sort of policed due to age?
I don't think it's really for me to tell anybody else what they should be doing. I think it's a worry that so many, certainly young children, have got access. I'd say certainly before the age of 7, because developmentally anybody under about the age of 7 or 8 struggles to understand the difference between what's real and what's not real. Whereas after about the age of 7 and 8, at least you can have a conversation, there is an understanding that not everything is real. But under that age, that developmental awareness isn't there, so it's quite disturbing that children that young have got access to social media and all these multimedia devices, because they won't have the ability and the capacity to be able to make those judgment calls, and so that's slightly scary.
With Facebook, it's always been the same with them in terms of how old you should be to start Facebook, and I think the age limit they've got is 13.
Press a button and say you're 13.
Yeah, you could say you're 13, exactly. But do you reckon that should be more policed, or the age restriction should go up, or?
Well, how does a machine? I don't think it'd make any difference. Saying that you've got to be 13 doesn't stop 7 and 8 year olds having Facebook, or 5 and 6 year olds having Facebook, because they just say how old are you, and they just put the date in so it says they're 13. So I don't think changing the date would make the slightest bit of difference, to be honest.
And do you believe that social media has influenced people to have poor self-image?
I think especially young people have had poor self-image anyway. I think social media has brought it out in the open. I don't think social media has actually changed any of the things that go on with children and young people. I think those issues have always been there. I think what social media has done is brought them out, so that actually it's more visible. It's not those feelings and those emotions that young people have aren't invisible anymore, and they're more recognised. So I don't think it's actually increased it there, to be honest.
With this sort of thing, especially when there's a lot of people commenting, especially in regards to Facebook, do you think that social media companies should clamp down on this sort of issue, or police it more, or do something more about it? Do you think that they should, or?
I think they have a responsibility. They have a responsibility because we know there are certain behaviours going on, especially from the exploitation point of view, that are going on that a lot of these big companies are turning a blind eye to, because it would create effort on their part to have to deal with them. There certainly is more they can do. I mean, the argument that you can't stop certain things because of the programming, you talk to any programmer, they'll say, no, you could do that, just write the right amount of code, take you a couple of days to work out the right amount of code, bang it in the system, job done. So there is a responsibility there. But there's also a responsibility, I think, of people using social media to take some form of responsibility as well for themselves. And that's where the worry is when you've got very, very young people involved in it, because perhaps they should be monitored slightly closer.
And when you say they have a responsibility, do you think they're partially to blame for...
We live in a blame culture. I don't think anybody really, when you can't blame the internet because it's a wonderful thing. You know, I know it's got a dark side to it, but it's also got a wonderful side to it. I don't think you can blame social media because, again, it may have a dark side to it, but it's also got a massively positive side to it. Human beings are imperfect beings. We all have a responsibility to keep ourselves safe if we are mature enough and have capacity enough to understand how to do that. And that's where media, social media and all of these things become a problem, is when you've got vulnerable people who lack the maturity or the capacity to be able to keep them safe within the arena. How you go about that personally, I wish there were more supportive agencies and people connected to education, maybe, not necessarily the schools themselves. I think they get expected to do an awful lot, but a lot more people connected to those environments where young people are and children are, to be able to keep themselves safe and educate them so that they can keep themselves safe.
And finally, Caroline, could you please tell our audience where can people go to that are local in terms of loads of people have this sort of issue, obviously. Who could they go to for help?
If you're in school, speak to a teacher you trust, speak to your youth worker if you've got one, speak to the school counsellor if you've got one, and mentors if they're available. If not in school, I would say certainly in Wrexham you've got the info shop, and the info shop have access to youth workers, counsellors. They do an awful lot more than just give out condoms, which everybody believes they do. No, they do an awful lot more than that. And they're very, very good at signposting people to the right people. There are people out there. There's not as many out in the open as there used to be, because austerity has caused an awful lot of cuts in this arena, but there are still people there. It's talking to a real person. So either speak to somebody at school if that's safe to do so. If not, go and speak to somebody in the info shop. They are very, very friendly. It's what they're there for, and they're nice people.